Dom Pedro I stands as one of the most complex figures in Atlantic world history. He was a Portuguese prince who became the first emperor of Brazil. He ruled during the collapse of old empires and the rise of new nations. His life was shaped by exile, revolution, and personal contradiction. His decisions changed the political map of South America and altered the future of Portugal itself. Dom Pedro I was both a liberator and a ruler whose authority was constantly challenged. Dom Pedro de Alcântara was born on 12 October 1798 in the Quelas Palace near Lisbon, in the Kingdom of Portugal. He was the second son of Prince João of Portugal and Princess Carlota Joaquina of Spain. His early childhood unfolded in a royal court marked by political tension and instability. Portugal faced growing pressure from Napoleonic France, while internal divisions weakened royal authority. Pedro's upbringing reflected the uncertainty of the era. His education was inconsistent and often neglected. Unlike many European princes, he was not shaped by strict academic discipline. He developed strong interests in music, horsemanship, and physical activity rather than formal study. Contemporary observers described him as impulsive, energetic, and emotionally intense from an early age. In 1807, when Pedro was 9 years old, the Portuguese royal family fled Europe. French forces were advancing into Portugal, and the court relocated across the Atlantic to Brazil. This move transformed Pedro's life. Brazil was no longer a distant colony but the center of the Portuguese monarchy. The royal court settled in Rio de Janeiro, exposing Pedro to colonial society, slavery, and the realities of ruling a vast overseas territory. Growing up in Brazil, Pedro matured in an environment unlike any European court. He witnessed the elevation of Brazil from colony to kingdom in 1815, when it became part of the United Kingdom of Portugal, Brazil, and the Algarves. This political shift increased Brazil's autonomy and strengthened local elites. Pedro married Archduchess Maria Leopoldina of Austria on 13 May 1817. Leopoldina was highly educated and politically astute. She played a crucial role in Pedro's intellectual and political development. Their marriage connected the Portuguese royal house to the powerful Habsburg dynasty and brought Enlightenment ideas into Pedro's inner circle. In 1820, a liberal revolution erupted in Portugal. The revolutionaries demanded a constitutional monarchy and the return of the royal family to Lisbon. King João VI returned to Portugal in 1821, leaving Pedro behind in Brazil as Prince Regent. This decision placed Pedro at the center of a growing conflict. Portuguese Cortes sought to reduce Brazil once again to colonial status. Brazilian elites resisted these measures and rallied around Pedro as a symbol of autonomy. Pedro's defining achievement came with the political break between Brazil and Portugal. Throughout 1821 and early 1822, tensions escalated. Orders from Lisbon demanded Pedro's return to Portugal. Brazilian leaders urged him to stay. On 9 January 1822, Pedro declared that he would remain in Brazil. This moment became known as the Day of the Stay and marked a decisive step toward independence. Over the following months, Pedro aligned himself more closely with Brazilian interests. He traveled through key provinces, building support and asserting authority. Leopoldina and key advisors played essential roles in guiding his decisions. On 7 September 1822, while traveling near the Ipiranga River, Pedro received new orders from Portugal that threatened Brazilian autonomy. He responded by declaring Brazil's independence. Pedro was proclaimed Emperor of Brazil on 12 October 1822. His coronation followed on 1 December 1822. The creation of the Brazilian Empire preserved territorial unity across an enormous and diverse land. Unlike the fragmented Spanish-American independence movements, Brazil remained a single political entity. As emperor, Pedro worked to secure international recognition. Portugal formally recognized Brazilian independence in 1825. Britain, motivated by trade interests and opposition to instability, supported the new empire. Pedro also oversaw the drafting of Brazil's first constitution in 1824. This constitution established a constitutional monarchy with a unique moderating power held by the emperor. While it guaranteed certain civil rights, it also concentrated authority in the monarch's hands. Pedro's reign shaped Brazil's early institutions. He maintained slavery, reflecting the economic realities and elite interests of the time. He supported the army and navy, ensuring territorial integrity. His leadership during the Cisplatin War, which ultimately led to the independence of Uruguay, demonstrated the limits of Brazilian military power, but also avoided broader regional collapse. Despite his achievements, Pedro's rule was marked by deep conflict. His personal life attracted scandal and criticism. His relationship with Domitila de Castro, the Marchioness of Santos, damaged his public image and strained his marriage to Leopoldina. Her death on 11th of December 1826 further weakened Pedro's moral authority in the eyes of many Brazilians. Politically, Pedro faced opposition from liberal factions who viewed his governing style as authoritarian. The 1824 constitution, though progressive in some respects, alienated regional leaders who sought greater autonomy. Revolts such as the Confederation of the Equator exposed resistance to centralized power. Pedro also became entangled in Portuguese affairs. When King João VI died in 1826, Pedro inherited the Portuguese throne. He briefly became King of Portugal, but abdicated in favor of his daughter Maria de Gloria. This decision drew him deeper into European dynastic struggles and raised suspicions among Brazilians about his loyalty. Economic difficulties and military dissatisfaction intensified unrest. By 1830 and early 1831, public demonstrations and political opposition had grown. Pedro's support eroded among both elites and the urban population. Faced with mounting pressure, he chose abdication rather than civil war. On 7th of April 1831, Dom Pedro I abdicated the Brazilian throne in favor of his 5-year-old son, Pedro de Alcântara, who would later reign as Dom Pedro II. Pedro departed Brazil shortly afterward, leaving behind a nation still fragile but intact. He returned to Europe and devoted his remaining years to securing the Portuguese throne for his daughter. Portugal was locked in a civil war between liberal constitutionalists and absolutist forces, led by Pedro's brother Miguel. Pedro took command of liberal forces and fought to restore constitutional rule. His health declined rapidly during these campaigns. Years of stress, illness, and exhaustion took their toll. Dom Pedro I died on 24th of September 1834 in Queluz, the same palace where he had been born. He was 35 years old. Dom Pedro I left a divided legacy. In Brazil, he is remembered as the founder of independence and the architect of national unity. His decision to break with Portugal without fragmenting the territory shaped Brazil's long-term stability. In Portugal, he is remembered as a defender of constitutional monarchy who helped defeat absolutism. His life embodied the contradictions of his era. He championed independence while preserving monarchy. He ruled in the name of liberty while exercising concentrated power. His actions reflected both personal impulsiveness and political necessity. Today, Dom Pedro I stands as a transitional figure between empire and nation. His legacy endures in Brazil's territorial integrity, constitutional tradition, and imperial symbolism. His story reveals how individual choices, shaped by global forces, can alter the course of history. That was Brazil's GOAT. Do you agree? Like the video if you do, or drop your true GOAT in the comments. Tell us which country should be next, and subscribe for the next GOAT.